Giving must be spontaneous, born of the intention, this is what I want to do, not this is what I'd better do. Is giving a sign that the ego is dying? No. In alchemy, there is no death. Nothing has to perish in order to reach the ultimate spiritual goal that we are calling the Grail. There is an old notion that the ego has to die for the spirit to live. But this old notion of ego death assumes that there are things about you that God judges against. I've just said that the ego is controlling and loveless. If God doesn't judge against this, shouldn't he? The inner wizard knows that none of us is judged against in the slightest way. None of our actions is good or bad in God's eyes. But that sounds shocking, because it would seem that a murderer and a saint are equal. What makes them equal is the spiritual perspective, which holds that the sinner and the saint are just masks we temporarily put on. The saint today may be the sinner in another life, and the sinner may be learning to become a saint. All these roles are illusions in God's eyes, because once we take off the masks, each of us is simply pure spirit. The giver is just someone who has decided to drop the mask of being, either as an egotist or as an achiever. One step closer to spirit is being taken. I'm not saying you have to force this perspective on yourself. It's natural to identify with this mask or that, but only as long as they mean something to you. Here is an anecdote from King Arthur's life to underline the point.
It was a miraculous Christmas day in London when young Arthur pulled the sword from the stone. In all the tumultuous crowd that witnessed the deed, none was more surprised than Arthur himself. Where is Merlin, he thought, certain that the wizard had accomplished this feat with magic. But Merlin did not show his face. Deep in the night, long after everyone else had gone to bed, Arthur still sat up, wondering if his destiny really was to be king. "I need you, master," he prayed. Suddenly there was a light under the door. Arthur leapt to his feet and opened it, but the old wizard hadn't come. It was only Kay, his adopted brother. "How are you faring?" Kay asked. Arthur did not know what to say, but as he turned back into the room, he took a sharp breath. "Hold your light higher," he said. Kay raised the candle, and its light fell on 3 objects that had appeared on Arthur's bed: a straw doll, a broken slingshot, and a cracked mirror. "Do you see those?" Arthur asked in a strange voice. Kay looked confused. "I see them, but they mean nothing to me," he said. "I wished for Merlin's help, and now these have appeared," said Arthur. "This moldy straw doll was my first toy. I must have been 2 when Merlin made it for me. This broken slingshot I made from deerskin and forked willow when I was 8. This cracked mirror I found in the woods when I was 12. Do you know what they have in common?" Kay shook his head. "They were the most important things I ever owned, each in its own time. And now look at them," said Arthur, who seemed very moved. "Worthless trash," Kay muttered. "Yet I am overjoyed to see them," Arthur said, "for now I know Merlin has guided me all along. You see, Kay, when I was 2, I only wanted toys. When I was 8, I only wanted to hunt sparrows and squirrels. And when I was 12, I only wanted to look in a mirror, wondering if girls would find me ugly or handsome. All these things I have put behind me, and yet each one was a stepping stone to this very moment. One day, so shall I put away the crown, although it is my sole wish and destiny today." Kay was a simple, stout soul who revered the monarchy. He was shocked. "Why would anyone throw away the crown?" he asked in bewilderment. Arthur replied, "I shall throw it away when it becomes as trivial as a doll, as useless as a broken sling, and as vain as a mirror. I think that's what Merlin wanted me to see."
Giving up power seems very frightening, but it's really like giving up a little child's toys. You grow out of it, and then the surrender is easy. The same holds true for any stage of evolution once it is no longer true to our inner being. We all follow rules of right and wrong, and in social terms, the sinner and the saint appear vastly different. But the values of society don't hold all the answers. Eventually, even the most ego-bound person sees this, and then the stage is set for the next step of alchemy.
Merlin continued his teachings to the two knights.
For a long time, the limited individual viewpoint is the only one that seems real to you mortals. You define good as what is good for me. But individuality eventually begins to open up and broaden its horizons. In time, the giver gives birth to the next stage, the birth of the seeker. In this phase, the sense of I is allowed to expand. The giver learned that intense love of others is possible. But now a person reaches out for the source of all love and fulfillment, which even the most intense love of another cannot deliver. The giver who wanted to embrace the world now finds that the world is not a source of fulfillment any longer. Things that once brought pleasure begin to seem flat. In particular, the ego's need for approval and self-importance no longer work to bring satisfaction. A thirst arises to see the face of God, to live in the light, to explore the silence of pure awareness. The seeker's impulse can take many forms. Yet all seekers have in common that the material world does not seem to be the place where their desires can be fulfilled. Why is this? Isn't God everywhere? Isn't spirit present in the tiniest grain of sand? Yes and no. God may be everywhere, but that does no good if you cannot see where he is. The seeker seeks in order to see the face of the divine. For some mortals, the birth of the seeker is the first time they become aware of a spiritual quest, but actually every stage is but a quest, a single impulse, the impulse to attain complete knowledge and complete fulfillment is what drives all of life forward. You are all seekers waiting to find out who you are.
At his best, the giver is a philanthropist. He started out only by giving to family and friends, then to charities or community, but in the end, the spirit of giving can't feel satisfied until all other humans benefit. Can you really give of yourself to everyone else in the world? This question brings you to the limit of individuality. It is a question only a saint can answer. When you become a seeker, you are able for the first time to put a name on a desire that has remained nameless up to now. Whether the name is God, the Grail, divine being, or spirit doesn't matter. They all point toward a new, deep-felt need, the need to escape the boundaries imposed by time and space. The seeker is the stage of alchemy that draws the divine to you, because a seeker is someone whose desires have expanded to the point that nothing will satisfy them short of meeting God face to face. This isn't a higher desire than wanting toys or money or fame or sex, which were desires born in earlier stages. Toys, money, fame, and sex were the face of God when they were the most important things to you. Anything that you believe will bring you final peace and fulfillment is your version of God. As you grow from one phase to the next, however, you get closer to the real goal. Your image of God becomes truer, nearer to his nature as pure spirit. How does God or pure spirit manifest itself? Everyone gets the version of the divine that they conceive in their hearts. Some see God in visions, some in a flower. Seekers are of infinite kinds. Some require acts of miraculous intervention and redemption. Others follow an invisible force that gently speaks to them in every day of their lives. The seeker is simply motivated by a thirst for higher reality. For the first time, the ego's claim to be all-knowing and all-powerful is questioned. The birth of the seeker, therefore, can be extremely turbulent.